Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Guilty as Charged podcast. My name is Steven, and I am the host coming to you live on a Sunday evening. A bit of a different schedule this week. Holiday season is upon us, and Tyler and I both had some holiday things to take care of today. But we are live now. This is the group therapy session, so feel free and let everything out in the chat. We'll sort through everything as we do our best every single week to kind of dive into the key takeaways. But we'll figure it out. So Tyler is here with me as always. Tyler, how are you doing tonight?
Yep, had a few holiday things to take care of, but oh my gosh, that was a really bad game from the Chargers today. That was coal in the stocking, whatever you want to call it. That was not fun, but I'm excited to discuss it with you and the chat.
Yeah, I think we just need to veto all December 14th, 15th, 16th games from now on, because this is kind of becoming a trend. The Houston Texans game from the COVID season was during this same time frame. Last year's obviously 63-21, and today. So just like veto the games during this week. I don't know what it is, but obviously the Chargers, they got their asses kicked today. There's really no other way to talk about it. So Chargers lose 40-17 after leading the game 17-10. So I think there are two main takeaways here from this game, Tyler. Before we get to them, of course, today's show is brought to you by our friends over at PrizePicks, the best and easiest way to consume daily fantasy sports. The Chargers let us down today, but PrizePicks hopefully kept you guys strong. Hopefully, supported the bank account, and obviously supports our show. You guys can go to prizepicks.com/guilty to get into the best and easiest way to consume daily fantasy sports. All right. Again, prizepicks.com/guilty. Tyler, where do you want to start with this one? I'll let you kind of kick us off here because I have some thoughts, but I want to kind of see how this goes. So you kick us off here. Where do you want to start tonight?
Right with the offense. I would love to discuss or hate to discuss this offense because it is the thing that we have been discussing the most throughout this season. I don't know what you could have called. I will not sit here and tell you that I know what the plays you should have called against the Bucs were or what they've been weak against this season. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I know all that. What I did know going into this game is what everybody else knew, and that's that Justin Herbert could barely walk and that he could barely get through this game and that he was going to, at minimum, be limited. He's a guy that's dealt with several injuries this season, and he's now hurt again. We knew that to be a fact. That is the only fact we knew. I don't think I saw anything in this offense today that reflected or acknowledged the fact that Herbert was injured or did anything to help him in any particular way that would get him through the game to Thursday, which they play on Thursday, if people don't know, and the rest of the season and into the postseason. It was infuriating to watch. Herbert, now some of this was game script at the end, but Herbert dropped back 36 times today, which is unacceptable given the injury. They rarely ran the football. Again, I thought they were building on something last week in the second half, and we acknowledge that. They ran it 11 times today, 3 with Kamani Vidal, 8 with Gus Edwards. Once again, the under on Gus Edwards hit again. There was a point in the game, and I believe it persisted through most of the game, where they did not call a screen a single time. And the broadcast pointed it out. You're not going to run a single screen? Where's the run game? Where's your identity? And none of that manifested in this game whatsoever. So just beyond the actual calls and the design of the plays, it feels like the offensive ecosystem and the structure of where it is right now is broken and rudderless, and frankly, it doesn't seem to know what it wants to do or what buttons to press at any particular time. The game plan might have been good, but in terms of execution, they couldn't block. They had no desire to run the football. They seemed to have no idea how to protect Justin Herbert, both in protection calls and in what they were called on screens to get things out early, you name it. I was appalled by this offensive game plan, and that was the entire game, and somehow it got worse in the second half. You could see the bones of some things maybe working in the first half. Wasn't great. They did score some points. Second half, once again, they faltered. And for everyone who's poo-pooed on the idea that we have discussed the second half offense time and time again, even in wins, this is why we talk about it, because games like this can happen. Now, granted, the defense didn't hold up their end today either, but when you can't do anything in the second half, it kind of snowballs. And today it affected the defense too, I think. The Chargers over the last 5 games have scored 37 points in the second half. That is barely a touchdown per half the last 5 games. That's unacceptable, especially considering they're not playing great defenses. Chiefs are a good defense, but the Bucs going into this game, they had players for sure. It's a banged up secondary. Has not been a good secondary. One of the worst secondaries in the league, unfortunately for them, I guess. But fortunate for the Chargers, supposedly. The Falcons, are you kidding me? The Bengals, not a great defense, have not been a good defense. And the Ravens at the time were not figuring out much on defense either. And you're getting barely 7 points per game in the second half. I'm going to end with this. And unfortunately, it's the way I felt in November of 2022, because you got to call it like you see it. I feel the same way about Greg Roman right now that I did about Brandon Staley as a defensive coordinator and potentially head coach. Then this isn't working. And I don't see how it's going to get any better. And I'm frustrated. And even unlike Brandon Staley or another coordinator the Chargers have had, this is not Greg Roman's first rodeo. He's been doing this for a while. And of course, there are personnel and injury issues. There are, don't get me wrong, there are other issues outside of his control. But it's not working. And he's your coordinator next year, though.
Yeah, it's a failed vision. The Greg Roman offense in 2024 has been a failed vision, in my opinion. You mentioned you head into this game knowing that Justin Herbert is injured. You head into this game knowing that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a very specific style of defense that they want to play. I mean, Todd Bowles has been a defensive coordinator, defensive play caller for 15 years in the NFL, and he coaches every game the same. It's a lot of, we're going to show cover 0. We're going to make you figure out the blitz protections. And if you don't, it's going to end like it did today. And so to come into this game plan and just have 0 real plan for what this was going to look like against the Todd Bowles defense. And there were consistent issues with the backs picking up blitzes. There were consistent issues with the tight ends picking up the blitzes. The interior, of course, had their issues, as they have had all season long. And so you head into this game, and this is your plan to make Justin Herbert drop back 36 times and to run the football 11 times while he's in there. That's not going to work even with a healthy Justin Herbert, let alone somebody who can barely move. And so he was hit 13 times today on 36 dropbacks. And honestly, it probably could have been even more. Yeah. Even though he was hobbled, he still escaped from a few sacks, and there were still a couple of times where he got the ball out quickly. And I saw people criticizing Justin Herbert today, and I'm like, that's a very wrong person to be directing this approach at today. It was completely unacceptable to me. We've hinted at this time and time again. They completely abandon the run game when there are positive game scripts for them. You're up 17-10, and you refuse to run the football. You come out in the second half and you're still winning. You're up 17-13, and you refuse to run the football. It's mind-blowing to me. I almost would respect Greg Roman more if he would just like continually pound his head against the wall and run the football 60% of the time, because it's what he knows he can do well. Right now, he's taking what he knows he can do well, and he's putting into the corner in timeout, and he's saying, we're just going to run traditional drop back games, and we're just going to get our franchise quarterback hit. And it blows my mind, the game planning perspective that happened today with a hurt Justin Herbert against a Todd Bowles defense. You have a very specific formula in general that works for your offense, and that approach was completely abandoned in the second quarter, essentially, against a defense that blitzes a ton and shows simulated pressures. And it resulted in one of the worst offensive performances we've ever seen from a Justin Herbert-led team. The Justin Herbert offense from today was at 186 yards total on the day. And then Taylor Heineke came in for the last drive and got the team over 200 yards with like a couple gimme passes and a couple runs. But to have Justin Herbert at quarterback and have 186 yards of offense is completely unacceptable. There's no way around it. The offense got smoked. The defense got smoked, but I don't really like. I know the defense is going to bounce back. I don't have any confidence that the offense can figure this thing out. We're in week 14 and they still don't know what they want to do. They still don't know what their identity is. They have nothing they can hang their hat on outside of Justin Herbert. When you're healthy, go bail us out. And he can do that from time to time. But the bones of this offense are a train wreck. They're non-existent. There is no identity. And this is a Greg Roman offense that was supposed to come in and raise the floor of this Chargers defense when it has dramatically lowered the floor and ceiling of a Justin Herbert offense, which to me is unacceptable.
Yeah, it is. The Chargers on the day, not a very good offense. In the second half, their EPA was second worst in the NFL, thanks to the Colts, I guess. They're not last. But their EPA was negative 0.835, which is atrocious. Their overall success rate was 25%. Their rushing success rate, we talk about floor elevations, from 1 to 100, Steven, what do you think their rushing success rate in the second half was?
21%.
That's generous. It was 0.
Oh my gosh.
Not that they ran it many times, obviously, but like your rushing success rate was 0, dude. Yeah, not great there. When you mentioned the number of quarterback hits, when you are hit more times in the game than you've run the football, it might be time to run the football.
Yeah,
that would just be my consideration there. Again, I don't know what you could have called, but whatever they decided to do, it didn't work. And the floor elevation or the lack thereof is more frustrating than anything. I don't need this. And we went into this season and even kind of thinking of next season, we don't need the Chargers to be a top 5 offense. Like that is probably not where they're ever going to get, barring a complete like investment in offensive weapons and a ridiculous set of skill position players. But man, like they can't protect, they can't run. It's a disaster. And I can't believe at the beginning of the season, we have that quote of Greg Roman saying, like, can you imagine Justin Herbert with a run game?
Still waiting.
Still waiting. The first couple of weeks of Dobbins were great, and Dobbins has had good moments and good games, but the Chargers do not have a run game. So it's I really don't know where to start. There are positives on offense, but today was pretty bad.
Yeah, as Nathan points out, like we all know what the Chargers path to success is, and a large part of it is throwing to Ladd, and Ladd did have a couple of drops in the second half, and he was visibly upset. But there's a very specific formula here for the Chargers, which when they can actually like at least have the threat of running the football, and you can RPO, you play action, all that stuff, the offense looks good. And then in the second half, every single game, except for last week, for whatever reason, they're just like, oh, let's just turn this into, the West Coast offense. And we're just going to traditional drop back 5 steps, 7 steps. And Justin Herbert's just going to get, cleated every single opportunity that the Bucs have. It's so frustrating to me to watch. And like you watch the Buccaneers offense and you watch, the Packers offense tonight or the Lions and Bills offenses, and everything is sequenced, right? Like everything is set up and everything has a reason behind it, and everything has a motive behind it. Everything is just like it works into the flow of the overall philosophy and overall system. And then you watch the Chargers, and it just feels like Greg Roman is just kind of like picking random plays off of the play sheet, and there's nothing behind it. So it's really frustrating to watch. There are consistent issues with spacing and timing from a receiving standpoint. They ran several plays today that were it was baffling to me. Their last 4th down call with Justin Herbert in the game, you're running like a clear out slant with DJ Chark, who has 2 catches on the season and is not a yak threat at all. He never has been that kind of player. And he gets tackled for 2 yards. It was 4th and 6, and they gained 2 yards. The previous 4th down, they isolated Land McConkey in zone, and like, sure, that makes sense. But again, It's
Yeah.
4th and 6, and they throw a 3-yard pass. You designing yak opportunities on 4th down is not good. That's not smart offense. You see in those situations, it is so much smarter to throw the ball past the sticks. Like it's a very simple concept, but it's things like this where they do not have the roster to play in the margins this way, and that's how they have decided to live. It's explosive plays or we don't move the ball. And right now, when Justin's banged up and Ladd's banged up, and you don't have your entire receiving core out there, you don't have a reliable pass catching tight end, although Stone Smart played well today, you don't have J.K. Dobbins. This is what it looks like. If your identity, so to speak, is explosive plays and you can't create explosive plays, this is what it looks like. 186 yards with Justin Herbert at quarterback. And the Buccaneers defense, like, they have a good defensive line. They blitz a lot, but they were 27th in the league in EPA per play, per EPA per dropback heading into today on defense. You can carve up the Bucs defense if you call the game the right way. And the Chargers obviously did not do that.
No, it was unfortunate. Obviously, the Buccaneers have Mike Evans, and that helps a lot. Who, by the way, I wouldn't have, if you had told me 2 did not practices would result in that kind of output, I would have called you crazy. So I didn't realize Mike Evans was going to just go full into approaching 1,000 yards suddenly on a season that was basically lost for him. But it's so frustrating when you watch the Chargers offense and then you watch the Buccaneers with McMillan and Irving and these guys. Even just those two, right? Like I like McMillan, we liked Irving. It's not these are bad players, but this isn't like, elite first round, high investment, high expensive talent. But you watch the Bucs offense and there's just such clear intention behind what they're doing. And you can see the execution. Things are crisp. You feel kind of like the violence behind what they're trying to do, the aggression behind what they're trying to do. But like things are designed open. That first touchdown was, John Taylor, I don't know what you were doing, but that was great for the Bucs and their offense. You just see like they had answers every time. And the Chargers just, again, for another year of this offense, just clawing and praying to try to get there, to get a first down, to get past the 50. And they get past the 50 and they roll over. It's frustrating.
Yeah, it really is. So just kind of saying some of the final stats out loud here. I did tweet this out, but just to put it out everywhere. So the Buccaneers had 24 first downs. The Chargers had 14. The Buccaneers ran 67 total plays. The Chargers ran 48. The Buccaneers had 506 yards of offense, which has recently been changed. The Chargers had 206. So yes, the Buccaneers outgained the Chargers offense by 300 yards today. They both had 11 drives. The Buccaneers averaged 7.6 yards per play. The Chargers 4.3. The Buccaneers went 9 for 15 on third downs, and the Chargers went 0 for 6. All of this leads to time of possession difference was 36-48 to 23-12. The offense was a complete no-go today. I don't know how much we're going to talk about the defense and some of their issues, but to me, like, the story of the day is the Chargers offense. Just, it looked uninspired. It looked a lack of creativity. There was a lack of identity. You get outgained in an NFL game by 300 yards. I'm sorry, that's on the offense, in my opinion. When you put the defense out there in such a drastic time of possession difference against an elite offense, like that's just kind of naturally going to be swayed that way. So this Chargers offense, I wasn't expecting them to come in and light up the world, obviously, but 206 total yards of offense, 17 points with 2 drives handed to you at midfield from the Chargers defense. It was bad. It was bad as an understatement. So this Chargers offense, it was a tough watch. Of all of the offenses I watched today, from an NFL standpoint, the Chargers was the worst. And there are some really bad other offenses out there.
And they host the #1 defense in EPA per play on Thursday, for those who are wondering. So should be a fun one.
Yeah. My second bone to pick today is with Jim Harbaugh. To start out, I love watching Jim Harbaugh. I think he has brought a real culture to this Chargers team that has been desperately needed. A lot of that is due to the player development and things like that. And they have overachieved so far from what I expected heading into the season at 8-6. They still have a chance to win 10 games. They still have a chance to go into the playoffs. But Jim Harbaugh's lack of an ability to create an edge in the game management department is constantly costing the Chargers points. And today it really set the tone in such a unfortunate way. The Chargers are up 17-10. They get to the Tampa Bay 45-yard line. They have a 4th and 6 opportunity. And up until that point, the offense is playing relatively well. The defense is playing well. You're coming down towards the end of the first half. And Jim Harbaugh decides to punt. And J.K. Scott punts it through the end zone. So the punt nets the Chargers 21 yards instead of potentially going for it and having the chance to go up 20-10 even, or potentially 23-10 or whatever, and give yourself a real edge heading into halftime. He elects for the punt, and then obviously the Buccaneers go and score 30 points unanswered. And he goes up at the podium afterwards and says that he defended his decision to punt at that point in time. He felt like the offense was doing good. They didn't want to give any of the Bucs any momentum, and he trusted the defense to get the ball back. Well, they didn't. The defense obviously held them to a red zone field goal, but it was 17-13 instead of 17-10. And you could tell that drive really sparked the Bucs offense up and, through to the second half. And so the Bucs up until that point had the 2 turnovers. Things were kind of a little clunky. Baker Mayfield threw 2 almost other interceptions and things like that. The offense was not necessarily performing great for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And so you punt them the ball and you give them life, and then it results in a 30-0 run after that. And this has been an issue all season long. Last week against the Chiefs, the Chargers had 2 opportunities past the 50-yard line, and Jim Harbaugh decided to punt, and it netted the Chargers like 50 yards because one of them went for a touchback. And this has been something that has cost the Chargers basically every other week of a game so far this season. The difference is now over the last 2 games, it is costing the Chargers opportunities to come back or, put teams away or any of this stuff, right? Like I'm not saying that if they go for it on that 4th down that they win that game, but they had a real opportunity to put some breathing room up against a really, really good team. And one of the reasons why the Bucs were so good on offense today is because they ran for 222 yards. Well, if you're up 23-10 at halftime, the Buccaneers are not going to come out and run for 222 yards. They're going to come out and try and pass and get back into the game. So it drastically impacted the Chargers' ability to potentially win this game. And for Jim Harbaugh to continually put trust in J.K. Scott to execute in those moments when he has not shown an ability to do that, like it'd be one thing if he were just always downing them within the 5. That's a rarity at this point in time. So the difference between 15 yards of net and what, like, trusting your defense, it's not a risk that is worth it to me. I think you go for it in those situations, not necessarily 10 times out of 10, but if they could have gone for it, at like a 50% clip, at least like threaten the teams that you're going to go for these opportunities. And for Jim Harbaugh to consistently play conservatively, I think is setting the offense up for failure. And I think it's setting up his team for failure against good teams. And we've seen that time and time again. If you do this against the Raiders, I don't really care, honestly, because I do trust the defense to, get those stops. But
yeah,
you had the Bucs on the ropes and you let them get the momentum back. And then the Buccaneers came out in the second half and their offense was an absolute buzzsaw. And the Chargers, again, do not have a roster where they can give these good teams opportunities like that. And to me, it's a big issue outside of the offense.
Yeah, so obviously, whatever the outcome, even if they had scored on that 4th down, it might not have affected the game, at least in terms of points. It did not affect the game. But as you said, there's a momentum shift potentially. There's a way that things are called for the offense, for the Chargers, for the offense, for the Buccaneers, et cetera, in the second half. So that might have affected the score. In terms of like the surrender index account that looks at this stuff, their decision to punt has a surrender index of 6.69, which ranks as 93rd percentile of quote unquote cowardly punts on the season and 88th percentile of all punts since 1999. It's not like the worst thing. I believe Harbaugh's had at least one or two this season that have been worse, but that is kind of the issue, right? There are other instances that have been worse than this one. And it is a little strange to trust Scott as much. I'm curious what that discussion is like during the week, before games, during games, with someone like Ryan Ficken. Like, hey, like, should we be doing this? You know, because it's almost like at this point, now against the Chiefs in Arrowhead, it was windy. I get not kicking it with Cameron Dicker.
Sure.
But it's almost like they're trusting J.K. Scott to pin them deep versus Cameron Dicker to go make the 58, 59 yarder, which of course is no chip shot by any means. I kind of think Cameron Dicker can do it, but who knows? What is also something we discussed, I think, this week, either post game last week or during the week, is the Chargers offense is so bad in the second half and the injuries are mounting for some of these guys that I actually think it is worth it for the Chargers to go for it early and kind of like invest early. So when they eventually run out of steam, as they have every week this season, practically, you already have that field goal maybe, or you already have that touchdown potentially, because, you know, McConkey not completely healthy. Herbert is generally like healthier to start the game, but things kind of fall off. The offensive line seemed to fall off in the second half. The whole offense falls off in the second half. So yeah. I really think, honestly, from a strategic perspective, it would be better to try going for it earlier in the game because of the injuries, because of the teams across from you, and because your second half offense has been terrible. So, hey, while you've got some momentum and the Bucs haven't figured you out yet, or other teams haven't figured you out yet, go for it. And if it doesn't yield points, fine. Technically, neither does a punt.
Yeah, and I think, you know, people who have listened to the show for a long time know that we're like generally proponents of analytics and the edge that it can give you. But it's not even that for me. It's like you mentioned, the momentum aspect of things. You know, this in the NFL where you have chances to put these teams away and change the game script in your favor, and you're the Chargers and you have this roster that has some limitations to it. I know they were technically favored heading into today, right? But like it's a self-awareness thing where, to me, you have to trust Justin Herbert to get 7 yards instead of giving the opportunity to the Bucs to have, you know, a momentum changing kind of drive. And that's what happened. And again, there's no guarantee that you go for it and you get it, and I understand that, but Jim Harbaugh needs to kind of lean into the aggressiveness, I think, a little bit more and put some trust in his offense. And maybe that can help them, give them a spark, and maybe that frees them up a little bit. Maybe it takes some pressure off of them, and just allows them to play a little bit more free. So again, I think Jim Harbaugh on the season has been obviously a real net positive for the Chargers, but the game management and always leaning towards the conservative side, I think, has cost them a couple of times to really get chances to seal some wins away. And if he had been able to do that against the Chiefs last week, maybe they win that game instead of losing by the 1 point or 2 points or whatever. Maybe they don't win today. Maybe the Bucs do come back and win this game, but maybe it's a 27-30 loss instead of 40-17. So these things can change the game in a really drastic way. And analytics or not, I believe in momentum. I think momentum is a very real thing, and giving your team an edge is a very real thing. And the Chargers are not doing that right now. They are not giving their offense an edge. Instead, I think the conservative nature of the game management is kind of bleeding over into how players play in those kind of situations.
Yeah, no, that's definitely fair to say. Even if, again, it wasn't like maybe a huge costly thing, maybe it means nothing in this game. We got to keep discussing this and track the moments where this is an issue, because if they make the postseason, or heck, if they don't, we want to be able to like point to that. Maybe in the playoffs, they're in Pittsburgh and they go hyper conservative and the Steelers just take over the second half. You know, we can look at this breadcrumb trail of, yep, just mistakes along the way there.
Yeah, I agree. So again, the Chargers are 8-6. I'm a believer in Jim Harbaugh's general vision, but these two issues, the play calling from offense and the game management, it cost them today, and it has cost them a couple of times this season.
Yep.
Um, do you want to talk about the defense very much tonight?
We at least need to discuss them. They did give up 40 points.
Yeah.
But to me, okay, people will go after Jaw Taylor specifically. Nobody had a good game on this one. The Chargers currently are charted with 6 pressures. Poona Ford being their leading pressure getter. Tart did have 2 holding calls drawn, which were pressures, but they don't count because they were holding calls. Still, the fact that I'm discussing Poona Ford, who we love, as your leading pressure getter, is not great in a game like this. 6 is basically unacceptable. The defense, the secondary, I mean, it was rough. It was rough to watch them. Fulton had some good moments. Cam Hart had some good moments. Still, obviously, had another great moment. But when you give up, how many yards of offense was it?
506.
Yeah. So when you get 506 yards, pretty rough performance for the defense overall. But to me, I'm less frustrated with the defensive performance today because they've been consistently pretty good.
Yeah.
Not good all the time, right? Against the Ravens, it was rough. Only 1/2 against the Bengals. But on a now, 12 game sample size for the Chargers, you can say they're pretty good. Or 13 game sample size for the Chargers, they're pretty good.
Yeah.
14 game? What are we at? I don't know.
14 games. Yep.
14 games, great. Doing great here. They just, as we've been saying, don't have the guys. They don't have the personnel. They will get that personnel. This team will be better in 2025. I fully believe in this defense. Nothing about this game had wavered any confidence of mine in Jesse Minters, in the development of some of these players. It's just you don't have a guy to cover Mike Evans, and you just the offensive line was better for the Bucs today. Chargers will get better. They'll get their pieces. So to me, I don't need to spend a whole lot of time talking about the defense.
Yeah, if this game were closer, I would have pointed to like the pressure, the quarterback pressure, as like the key thing that changed the game. It felt like Baker Mayfield had all day to throw back there, and we kind of were expecting Tristan Wirfs to hold down his side. He's a great player, and I love Khalil Mack. He's one of my favorite Chargers, but Tristan Wirfs is a better tackle than he is an edge rusher at this point in time. And so we highlighted, somebody else besides Khalil was going to have to pressure the quarterback today, and it turned out nobody really did. Poona Ford being your leading pressure getter is a huge problem for how you can call defense. And then you also have these secondary issues to just being you got beat constantly by Mike Evans. It was a weird Christian Fulton game. I know people are really going after him as well, but again, I think Christian Fulton has been more of a positive than a negative overall on the season. It was a bad matchup today for him. It was a bad matchup for Jasir Taylor. It was a bad matchup for Tariq Still, man. Tariq Still got the interception. It was a great play, but he got beat a couple of times as well. And then he gave up that horrible missed tackle on Mike Evans. And listen, Mike Evans is a great player. If he's scoring 50, 60-yard touchdowns on you, I think you got a problem in 2024. That man was rumbling to the end zone like he was Will Dissly after that broken tackle. So some poor angles today from the defense. Overall, I thought the defense, it just struggled. But you look at that first half and you think like the Chargers defense was in it. They were obviously creating the turnovers. You had some good moments, creating some potential tackles for loss, etc. But then in the second half, they were on the field the entire half. Like it was just a lose-lose situation for the defense today. Yes, they did not play very well. But like you said, I expect them to bounce back. We've seen this before, right? We've seen them have some bad moments, have some bad games, and they come back and they play very, very well the next week. So I expect the Chargers defense to play much better on Thursday. I think they've earned a right to have some kind of optimism there. But yeah, it was a bad matchup today. 222 yards on the ground. Khalil Mack talked about it afterwards and said that that's just unacceptable for them. And I do agree. 40 points, 500 yards of offense, 222 on the ground. That's not what this defense is about. And I think they've proven that they will bounce back from this kind of performance.
Yeah, I think they will. One, regarding Cam Hart, I hope he's fine and gets through everything. The second concussion in 4 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever it is rough. That's rough as a rookie, of course, to start having those, very promising, leaves, comes back, starts to finally work in, barely gets to play, concussion. A great freaking read on that near interception, but just unfortunate outcome. What did you make of them not going with Fulton, Hart, and Still as their main trio of corners to start the game?
Well, I think they clearly trust Fulton and Still as their top two guys right
Mhm.
now. Obviously, the snap counts bear that out ever since Cam Hart came back. I think they probably look at Jaw as a better slot corner than Hart is on the outside. I completely disagree with that, but that's what they are telling us with the snap counts. Um, and I think they want to rotate the four guys. They view the four guys as all starting caliber players, and there's a lot of trust in Jasir for what he's done for them. I guess I don't really know, but I think it's pretty obvious that their best trio is when Hart is out there, and Jasir Taylor made a couple crucial mistakes today, also in the special teams department as well. So it's really frustrating to see them kind of not recognize that Hart is their other best third corner. It's even more frustrating to see him get his second concussion in the last 6 weeks.
Yeah, no, it's unfortunate. I was surprised though that Hart wasn't back out there, barring some sort of lingering thing physically, because Asante Samuel Jr. is not returning for any reason, or not for any reason, not returning anytime soon, kind of because Cam Hart stole the show and was clearly their best other guy, opposite what should have been Fulton, just he was also out. So I'm a little surprised that now he's not out there as much. But then with the injury, I guess, I don't know.
Yeah, I will say from a positive side, I thought Elijah Molden played great today. He obviously recovered the fumble.
Yeah.
He had a couple other crucial run stops.
Mhm.
Troy Dye played pretty well. He had the sack, obviously the one sack on Baker Mayfield. I don't know, man. There were some good moments from the Chargers defense, and there were some good opportunities for them to make some plays, but like Baker Mayfield was scrambling 4 or 5 times. Mike Evans is shrugging off tackles like this is 2017. Like it was weird. It was a weird vibe on defense today. But like I said, I do trust them to perform better next week and going forward.
Yep, I agree.
Potentially circling back to offense here. Zion Johnson did get injured today, and I know he's not everybody's most favorite offensive lineman in the world. But the Chargers were rotating Zion, or not, excuse me, not Zion. The Chargers were rotating Trey Pipkins and Jamari Sawyer drives today. So last week, Jamari, that is, played 3 snaps. Today, they were flat out doing a rotation, one drive here, one drive there. And now Zion is potentially going to be out. I mean, we'll see what happens with his injury. I can't imagine he plays on Thursday, given that he wasn't even able to put any pressure on the ankle once he was walking off the field. So Jamari and Trey Pipkins is your 2 starting guards, probably for the rest of the season, I would guess.
I don't know why I thought I saw Zion play in the second half, or like after the injury. Maybe not. It must have been 79, I guess. Jamari was right guard.
Jamari was left guard. I don't recall him going back in the game. I could be wrong. I wasn't like super in tune with like the fourth quarter, but I do not recall him going back to the game.
So Evan says he was back in after the injury, because I do. After seeing him barely walk off the field, I was stunned to see him out there. Can someone, anybody,
Anybody else?
Not that anyone's actually watching Zion Johnson very often more than us, but I thought it was kind of a surprise.
Thomas says he was on the sideline doing warm-ups. I could be wrong. I do not recall him going back in the game after that.
I don't know. Go look at one of the sacks that Herbert took and one of like the 12 that I feel like happened, and I'm sure we'll find it. But yeah, that's an ugly duo. And even Jamari Sawyer, when he was in and rotating, there were some struggles there too. It's not like, oh shoot, what a revelation. He was a perfect game. So yeah. Evan, okay, thank you, Evan. Go look for us. I appreciate
that. Even if he was in, and I do appreciate Evan for checking, but even if he did go back in, I think there's a lot of that is adrenaline, right? Like I do not expect him to play on a short week, which is probably a high ankle sprain, given like the way that he fell and looked like that. So, okay, so Brad said that he went back in. So apologies there. He did go back in. I don't think he's going to play this week, right? And so you have Jamari and Trey, and then like Sam Mustipher is your backup guard after that. I don't know, man. It's a rough situation. You know, it's not the best group in the world, and now you're potentially dealing with injuries. It's kind of amazing the fact that they've gone this long without any major injuries so far. But yeah, man, rotating guards at week 14, not my favorite thing in the world.
No, the whole interior situation has been an experience this year for sure, right from free agency all the way till now. I will say, finding one more positive thing, I guess, before we get to some super chats here. Quentin Johnson is physical again.
Yeah.
I genuinely was, and he was close to several other big catches. The big deep over probably would have got him like 70, 80 yards on the game. I need to see a replay of the interception because I couldn't quite tell where Johnson was trying to go relative to where Herbert was throwing.
Yeah.
So I need to see like the all 22 of that one in particular. But hey, man, the touchdown, like, holy crap, they get the ball in his hands, let him do some yak stuff, and lo and behold, it boosts his confidence and he looks better. So that's good. That's good to see. I was hoping for a bigger game. I said he was going to go off and get 100 yards this game, but hey, I thought he had some good moments this game.
Yeah, Jacob pointing out he's got 8 touchdowns on the season, so it was a good performance from Quentin. I thought Ladd looked good in his opportunities. Unfortunately, they just kind of forgot about him for 80% of the game. But yeah, there were some other standouts. I'm sure we'll watch the tape and we'll see some other positives, but it just was frustrating day at the office for the offense. Defense was on the field, the entire second half. So, yeah, it's not a great one to talk about today.
No, and with the 8 touchdowns, he's getting close to obviously 10, and it reminds me a lot of Mike Williams' second season, where the numbers weren't quite there, but he started to get the touchdowns. And then the next year, he had like not many touchdowns, but over 1,000 receiving yards. So if he can just a little bit, if we get a Quentin Johnson that can get like 800 to 1,000 yards next season, hey, that's something.
Yeah. So he's got 459 on the season so far, which is not, it's not a ton, obviously, but it's a good amount. And maybe that becomes, 600, 650, something like that. Maybe he gets to 10 touchdowns on the season. I think that's significantly better than a lot of people thought we would get for this season. So good performance from him. We mentioned him briefly, but 5 catches, 50 yards for Stone Start, man. And he drew 2 key penalties.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, like why it took them so long to get to him. As soon as Hayden Hurst went down, it should have been him as next man up. But I guess better late than never for Stone Smart.
Yeah, I love the verticality that he brings that even Will Dissly can't always bring on a consistent basis. Again, it was like the one seam route, and that was sick. They tried that with Hayden Hurst, and it didn't work. I don't know how many receiving yards Hayden Hurst has, but I believe Stone Smart passed him in either of these past 2 games, just in one of those games. But the way that he can just, whether it's a deep over, a corner, whatever it is, you can just push a little bit more. I thought Stone Smart's been making great catches. That catch, it is very, like, you put a helmet on, it is very difficult. Like, you don't see the ball until like right here. So to him specifically to be able to catch it like he did was really impressive.
Yeah. So Hayden Hurst on the season has 7 catches for 65 yards. So yes, Stone Smart has passed him. Yeah.
I don't, from the perspective of you're trying out Hayden Hurst and everyone else is a better run blocker, and Scott Malik you're trying at fullback. I understand like why at first he wasn't out there, but having now watched him after 2 games, it's like, what was he doing this whole time? Yeah. But I'm glad to see it. I don't know what his future will be with the Chargers, but if he can be even a third option for you, that's a little bit more involved, I think it's awesome.
Yeah, so he would be an exclusive rights free agent after the season. So the Chargers would, you easily bring him back, right? So they would have Tucker Fisk also should be back next year, given his undrafted free agents contract. Scott Malik is still under contract. Will Dissly is under contract. So you have those guys, and you go draft, a tight end in the first round, second round, and you feel much better about the position. Assuming the Chargers can go plug some holes in free agency, obviously, but you drop Colson Loveland into this group, or you drop Tyler Warren into this group, or the kid from Bowling Green. Yeah, man, the tight end room can become a much bigger improvement this season. Yes, as Thomas points out, the Stone Smart usage makes you wonder what type of football crimes Justin Herbert would commit with a top tight end. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. No kidding. Well, I mean, we almost saw it in a way in the Pro Bowl with Mark Andrews, 2 touchdowns and 50 yards in like 3 drives or whatever. So,
yeah. Yes, Harold Fannin, the Bowling Green tight end. Thank you. Thomas, for those who don't know, is one of the best draft people out there. So definitely go follow Thomas online. Subscribe to his Substack as well.
Yeah. As Michael points out, one of these years, Stephen, they'll draft a tight end. They did. It was Trey McKitty.
Yeah. Thankfully, for the Chargers' sake, they passed on a great tight end class last year. Sounds like this is a great tight end class upcoming this year. I think Jordan Reed said there's at least 6 guys worthy of a top 50 selection this year. So he loves this tight end class. A lot of people feeling the same kind of vibes with this group. So yes, a vertical threat tight end that is a high end threat, I think really can change this offense.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's get to these super chats. We greatly appreciate you guys for all of these comments, and obviously here in the chat. It's been a fun one. We'll point out some questions as we go, but we'll start with the super chats. Quantum Humanix wants to know, what is a reasonable ceiling for Still? He's playing like he has all pro potential someday, but is that really a thing? So for what it's worth, he does lead all rookies in interceptions now after today. And heading into today, he was the highest graded rookie cornerback on PFF, even ahead of Quinyon Mitchell, who's getting like legitimate defensive rookie of the year hype. So for you, Tyler, what do you think of the ceiling of Tariq Still at this point in time?
Oh, I think it's extremely high. Watching him, the instincts, the tackle today notwithstanding, because that was not fun to watch, or the lack of a tackle. The instincts, the coverage skills are beyond what I would have guessed. They seem to know exactly what they want out of him, what he could do, and how he fits. It seems to be a seamless fit right now. So long as they have Klingscale, Minter, and these guys,
yeah,
I don't know how you become an all-pro. Like, not how, but like that's a very small group of people.
Yeah,
so it's very difficult to get to that spot. But he should be, if he's a slot corner, I think, really up there with one of the best, I think, in a few years.
Yeah, that's the thing with Tariq Still, man. I think his instincts and his physicality is better suited in the slot, and we haven't really seen him play much there this year. Like, he's the team thinks he's best suited on the outside at this point in time. So I don't know what the ceiling is. All pro cornerback is really, really difficult, especially from a consistency standpoint. You know, coverage stats are very fluky in the NFL. So he's gonna have to kind of prove next year that he can be consistently this same kind of guy. But I mean, he's drastically outperformed any kind of expectations I had heading into the season for him. So I don't know if I want to put a ceiling on him just quite yet. I think we can just kind of enjoy the season that he's having right now, and recognize that this is potentially a guy that's going to be on the all rookie teams. Who, that's kind of a crazy thought for us to say, you know, from what we thought when they drafted him, and we were not the biggest fans of that selection. So credit to him, credit to how the Chargers are using him. That being said, I think the tape is going to show more of a bad game than a good game. He just happened to get the interception. So, but still deserves a lot of credit for how he has played this season.
Yep. Going to be 3 Chargers in the all-rookie team this year. Pretty good.
Pretty good. FBS Gandhi says, to try and pull a positive out of this, maybe we'll get to keep Jesse Minter for another season. Yeah, I think that's fair. You know, I think we were probably trending that way anyways, but I think obviously the last few weeks has kind of put a pin in that conversation. I think you'll still get interviews, obviously. But it sounds like there's not going to be as many openings as maybe what we would have thought. And, you know, you still have Mike Vrabel looming large. You still have, you know, some other connections that loom large, like Cliff Kingsbury and the Bears is an obvious one. Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn both sound like they're going to take jobs this year. So I don't know where Jesse Minter is going to fit in, but I do still expect him to interview for other teams.
Yeah, I think so. he will not be coaching North Carolina. I'll tell you that. But I also think
I am in shock that Bill Belichick is coaching college football.
yes,
It's crazy to me.
no, I don't know what if you gave me 50 guesses or at least 32, right, with all the NFL teams, I would have been wrong. I wouldn't have guessed this, but and I guess to a certain extent, Liam Cohen is now potentially in some head coaching consideration.
Yes.
So that also kind of helps Minter stick around too.
Yeah. Yeah. Liam Cohen, I think, deserves a ton of credit, man. I mean, their offense is creative. Their run game is a ton of fun. I mean, obviously he's getting some great performances out of Baker Mayfield. So yeah, he's a good coach, man. He really is.
Mm-hmm.
The Bill Belichick thing is so funny to me. Like there was an article written that like this is Bill Belichick taking a college job was like a big like FU to the NFL. And I'm like, I think people just kind of don't want to do the whole 73-year-old Bill Belichick aspect of things. It's not that like they disrespect him as a coach. I think I mean, how long are you going to get Bill Belichick, right? Like this, and then he's bringing the band back together in North Carolina, man. I don't know how many teams really want to do that.
No, I could not believe that Lombardi is his GM and that he also wants to go with McDaniels and Patricia and everybody.
And Lombardi's son is going to be his offensive coordinator.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, this is tough. Very strange world. College football is a mess. But anyways, we can talk about that on some other time. Andrea Schoon in here says, "Oh my, that was rough. You guys rock though. We always appreciate Tyler's mom jumping in here and spreading some positivity."
Yes, we almost went to the game, decided not to, so it's not my fault.
Tyler is not banned.
It's not my fault.
Hey, maybe if you had gone, they would have won.
No, no. It would have been historic.
Yeah, it would have been worse. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Caesar says veto games on this weekend, the Navy uniforms and flexing into a Thursday game. I couldn't agree more.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Flexing to Thursday is terrible. How many people I've talked to that just said like, oh, I can't go now. Yeah. So that's neat.
Yeah. And especially like around the holidays, like people are planning their Christmas vacations around these kind of games, you know, and you go from potentially going to a game on Sunday, the 22nd before Christmas to now you're just not even going at all. So yeah, it definitely sucks.
Yeah. At least they'll be well rested for the Patriots and Raiders.
Yeah, man. Thursday, they got to win on Thursday. It is a must-win situation for the Chargers because if they lose and they get the 7 seed and have to play at Buffalo, that's not going to be a fun experience, I don't think.
No.
When the Bills are rolling, man, they're impossible to beat. They went into Detroit today and like just were an absolute buzzsaw. So
yeah, Josh
I want zero part of that.
Nope.
Sean Burgeon says that only good thing is he got to wear some giveaway gear today. So that's good for him.
Awesome.
Did you see the Harbaugh shirt that the team was selling today? It was like a crew neck sweater and it said, I like people who love football or something like that. You know, his quote from back in the day.
Okay. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. Sounds like the team is doing like custom gear for every game right now. So
that's smart. It sells out fast too.
Super smart. Tara Ben here said, well, that sucked. Tyler, you better go live this Thursday at 5 p.m. to sacrifice a live chicken. Real talk, though, this team needs to either get a wide receiver that can get open or go after offensive line that can block.
Yes, we'll sacrifice the chicken for sure. Yes, receivers that can go open, linemen that can block, coordinator that can call plays. All those things would be good.
Probably not great to have that many needs on offense.
Yeah, people are asking what they should do in the draft. I have no idea. All the answers are correct right now. Receiver, tight end, edge rusher, defensive tackle, corner. Like, there's no right answer right now. It's just BPA.
Yeah. I mean, there's a path for them to get like upwards of $120 million in cap space, and they can just go crazy in free agency. But yeah, man, like if hypothetically speaking, Greg Roman sticks around, which I think we both agree is the most likely outcome here, and you keep this same kind of style of offense, you got to upgrade at center and right guard at minimum if you're going to run this kind of offense and throw the ball deep as much as they want to do. because right now that's the main reason that they're not able to do much on offense is they're running deep drops every other play. It feels like.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah. But yes, we'll sacrifice a chicken. We'll sage our rooms or whatever we need to do to get the Chargers a win on Thursday. I think at this point. Nature's Calls podcast. We appreciate our guy here with a not so great statistic. Chargers in the second half, if you remove games against bottom 10 teams in the NFL, have been outscored this season 57 to 125. Read that again, 57 to 125. They have been outscored in the second half in 7 of their 14 games. Also, yeah, second half offense, not great. Not great.
Wow, 57 to 125.
I assume this is taking out like the Raiders game, Titans game, the Browns game. So yeah, not great. And what's crazy is that they outscored the Chiefs 17-3 last week
and lost. It's crazy, that one graphic of all the teams that have scored 30 points this season and those who haven't. Still it's like an awful group of teams that have won like 2 games and the Chiefs with 12 wins. It's crazy.
The Browns, man, they got into the red zone like 6 times today and they turned the ball over 5 of the 6 times. It was awful game from the Browns this morning. New Jersey Savage, I know this sucks, but I'm still a little optimistic about this team because I know what it looks like when we are on point. He does say that Roman needs to go though.
Yeah, I mean, when they're firing on all cylinders, there have been moments where you see like a truly not dominant, but pretty like impose your will team. So they could get there with some health. Obviously, with Dobbins coming back at some point, that'll help.
Yeah,
but I agree that Roman needs to go. He's not going to. So we just need to discuss the solutions within the system.
Not great. Who is Dave is? Why the decision to go for it on 4th down when they did not, or why a decision to go for it on 4th down when they did and not take the field goal, like you're adding to the injury? Is this the first 4th down attempt?
No. Oh wait, why decision to go for it when they said it? When they did, wait, why a decision to go for it and not take the field goal? Oh, I guess it was the first one, the McConkey short pass. I don't even recall what the score was at that point, but it was, I don't know. The stranger 1-2 for me was not going for it, and then with 37 seconds left, just trying something.
So the first one, it was 30-17 at that point. They had the ball at the 34-yard line. So a field goal from there would have been 48 yards? No, 51 yards. 51 yards. I think the thinking and going for it is that you're down 2 scores and kicking a field goal still means you're down 2 scores. Yeah. 30-20 doesn't really do much for you, whereas 30 to potentially 23 can still keep you in that game. But at that point, it was very clear that the defense was gassed and you're not stopping them. And then obviously they gave up a touchdown drive right after that. So yeah. The Alex Insdorf pointed this out, but punting it when they did in the first half, and then they get the ball back with like 30 seconds and they're still trying to go score. I was just really confused by that in general with the approach. Like, if you're going to be conservative, why are you trying to subject Justin Herbert to more hits at the end of the half?
Yeah. I wonder if it's just because they trust Herbert to not turn the ball over. And the worst thing that could happen in their eyes is they just run the clock out. Whereas I guess like earlier, the Bucs could score. So
yeah,
it is strange.
It's strange. Jose wants to know if we think they were looking past the Bucs to the Broncos game, and he thinks that it will take Jim and Joe 3 draft classes in free agency to get the full roster.
Yeah, at minimum next year for sure, right? That's not a complete overhaul, but it's pretty close to one. Crazy how much the NFL changes. I posted that last time the Chargers played the Bucs, and it was nobody that caught a football or ran the football was even on the team anymore. The whole defense was gone. Perryman came back. Looking past the Bucs to the Broncos, no. As fans, I don't think we were.
Yeah.
Frankly, I think the Bucs are more dangerous than the Broncos.
Yeah.
I
The
got
Bucs are a better
some
team than the
thoughts, though.
Broncos, full stop. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Especially when healthy.
Yeah. No, the team, I think, heading into the game had the right mindset. I think they got their asses kicked today. Sometimes that happens, but did not help from the coaching standpoint today. Tara back with another one and says, although Roman did go to Lad a bit more today in the second half, why does he always go away from Lad in the second half in general? Is Lad not getting open?
I don't know. It was more of an issue of it just a flat out not going to him in previous weeks, but against the Falcons, he was injured. Chiefs, he didn't play today. I don't know how much he played in the second half. But yeah, I don't know. To me, to be completely honest, I feel like McConkey is uncoverable. So I don't know why they haven't designed it up more for him. But I think he's also hurt.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, but like it was the first couple of drives were great. You know, they're getting Lad on some RPO actions, they're getting him on crossers, and then their whole approach to the offense changes in the second quarter. Really, is where it kind of started to change. So, is he not getting open? We'll have to watch the tape, but I mean, Lad is one of the best receivers in the league at getting open right now. So, I think it's just the approach. And again, that's what makes the Chargers' offensive structure so frustrating to me. Is like they don't even lean into the things that they do well. Like if I were calling the plays for this offense, and I'm like, okay, I have this receiver who does this one thing very, very well. Let's keep doing it until teams show that they can stop him. If I have this tight end, Stone Smart, who can show that he can do this really well, or Quentin can do this really well, let's just lean into these concepts, and they're just not doing it. So it definitely adds to the frustration. Caesar says it feels like every OC that Herbert has had falls in love with his potential, that they expect him to solve every problem and absolutely refuse to help him out in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I would say it's almost like Lombardi had a different approach. It was more of a cerebral potential approach. Clearly not a throw the ball down the field approach. But it felt like the most friendly system. Even if you can say it didn't maximize ceiling, it was definitely one of the floor elevators.
Yeah, I mean, people talk about like Herbert's past seasons, I think, in the wrong way. Like everybody remembers the 2020 offense and thinks that's the best offense he's had, when the 2021 offense, he threw for 5,000 yards and 38 touchdowns. Like there were definitely issues with the Joe Lombardi offense, but I think it made him a point guard in a way that the other offenses have not been able to do. And I think it worked for that specific team. And the key thing there is that Frank Smith was handling all of the protections and the run game, and everything was great. That offense had like the 14th best running game in the league, which would be a significant upgrade for what the Chargers are doing right now. And Joe Lombardi's not exactly known for his run game approach as Greg Roman is.
Right. Correct.
So I think this particular thing applies much more to Kellen and much more to Shane than it does the other ones. I think that was a bigger problem for those two than Joe Lombardi.
Yeah.
Nature's Calls podcast back here again says the punts make me feel like they don't have faith in the offense or too much faith in the defense. Not sure, but regardless, it continues to derail us. I think it is faith in the defense. Like first, I think that's how Jim Harbaugh like wants to coach, is that he wants to have this defense, performing at the way they have. And again, for the most part, this season, that kind of faith has paid off. But when you play so conservatively on offense, eventually you're going to get to a unit that just is not performing up to task in these kind of key situations. And so when you go 0 for 6 on third downs, I think a key part of it is the mentality that the players bring into those situations where, if you have 2 downs to get the first down, you just play a little bit more free on third down. But since that Jim Harbaugh is always going to punt, you play just a little bit tighter on that third down. And sometimes we see some execution issues that don't normally happen. Like Ladd McConkey today dropping a pass on third down. It's like, well, that's uncharacteristic, but you never know what he's thinking in that play. Maybe he's, I have to go make a play and there's more stress on it. And leads to a drop, and that can happen when you're playing so conservatively on fourth downs.
Yeah, that's fair.
J Rob said, are we doomed or do we bounce back on Thursday?
I genuinely have to see the injury report for both teams, which is a bit of an estimation, but someone mentioned Surtain might have had issue getting off the field today, which he would miss another game against the Chargers. I think DJ Jones got hurt. But I don't know, dude. I really don't know what to tell you. This offense, I don't know, man. And the Broncos are a much different team. I know they didn't have a great game today, but they're a much different team than they were the first time the Chargers played them.
Yeah, the Broncos offense is a lot better the first time around than the first time around. Surtain, it was weird. So he got an interception, and then as he's getting up, he goes to start running, and whoever tackled him went right for his legs, and his leg just kind of got stuck in the ground a little bit. It was a little awkward. So he didn't play much in the first game that they played. So I don't think that injury is going to change how I feel about the game. And Patrick Surtain is an awesome player. He's the best cornerback in the league. But the Buccaneers cornerback trio is awful, and they didn't have any starting safeties today, and it didn't matter. So this is going to be about how the Chargers can protect Justin Herbert, who can barely move, more so than anything else. But I do expect the defense to bounce back today. They're not going to allow 40 points and 500 yards of offense again this week. I think they're going to come back on Thursday and have a much more positive performance.
Yeah, I agree.
JJ says he expected way more from the edge room. Cut him.
It's at least inconsistent. You'd like to see more.
Yeah.
Mac's generally been the most consistent. Thule, it's been stretches of games of kind of gone, really great, kind of gone.
Yeah.
But Joey's obviously the cut next offseason. Probably at this point, should have been this season too.
Yeah, Joey and Bud, I don't think you can bring them back. I'm if they invest in an edge rusher early, I'm not opposed to keeping Bud around, I guess. But again, you have to make that decision before you do the draft.
Right.
But to me, I would love to see this edge room get a little a twitched up bendy player just to kind of complement them a little bit, and somebody who can win instantly with quickness as opposed to all these guys who are power rushers. And I don't know if that's the style of how this team wants to play, but I look at, obviously Michigan, very different roster, and Jesse Minter wasn't there. But when they had Hutchinson and Ojabo, they had a bunch of other power rushers, and then Ojabo was kind of the speed off the edge. I think they're missing that kind of speed presence. So I would like to see them maybe get a little bit more of a speedy, designated pass rusher type. But I do think this edge room is going to be very different next year. I think the thing with Thule is that he's very clearly productive when he starts, but when he's not starting, I don't know what it is. The pass rush productivity is significantly lower when he's a complementary pass rusher versus when he's a starter. So I don't know. I have full confidence in him being a starter next year, but I do think they need a true DPR third edge rusher outside of him and Khalil, who I do think should be brought back.
Yeah, I agree.
But again, Khalil's playing against Tristan Wirfs. Kind of expected that to be shut down. I don't know. I guess I need to put some respect on Luke Gadecki's name, because I was not expecting him to pitch a shutout against the other edge rushers either.
Yeah, no kidding.
Blaze said the only bright side of this putrid-ass game is it possibly helps us retain Minter for another year. Appreciate y'all. Comments read today, it seems like.
Yes, that is definitely. And I'm glad at least we're all still kind of positive on Minter here.
Yeah. I mean, again, the track record here for Jesse Minter is just too positive for this whole season. Appreciate the super chat from Blaze and everybody else in here, but $20 super chat definitely means a lot.
That's awesome.
And then our last one here for now, at least from Nature's Calls podcast, that's Las Vegas, Tennessee, Carolina, Cleveland, and New Orleans. I assume those are the games where the Chargers, those were the bottom 10 teams that he discounted in the stat earlier. Tough. Okay, good news from Thomas Martinez. This edge class is deep and is every type of rusher. So there you go.
Awesome. Awesome.
Steven says, you just asked for a rough extension. I asked for a good, bendy, quick edge rusher, not somebody who can barely play on special teams.
Yeah, unfortunate. I genuinely thought Chris Ormf could at least do some damage the last couple of seasons as even the fourth guy, but injuries, unfortunate. So gotta find another guy.
Yeah. Throw the 9 had this earlier. Under Justin Herbert in 2020, the Chargers averaged 24 points per game. 2021, 27.9. 2022, 23. 2023, 20.4. 2024, 21.0. So scoring is down across the entire NFL, but yeah, man, 21 points per game with Justin Herbert at quarterback is not acceptable to me.
Dang, is it really 21?
I honestly was expecting lower, to be completely honest here.
Yeah, I guess when you're basically only playing a half of football half the time. Sheesh.
Yeah.
21 points per game. Good Lord.
Was trying to see if there were any other relative comments. Sign OBJ? No, thank you. Not interested. I'm surprised that was the first time that anybody brought that up.
We have Laviska Shenault. I guess we can kind of discuss this because the Chargers are now the 7th seed, and
yeah,
they're no longer in control of their destiny, I guess, to make the playoffs necessarily. They might need some more help, and they got to win Thursday. So do you envision a playoff appearance? I guess it depends on what gets you a playoff appearance. I do believe they'll win 10 games. Thankfully, this schedule sucks. But I don't know if 10 wins is enough. If you lose to the Broncos, then the best you can get is a 7th seed. And it's almost like, what's the point if you have to go play Buffalo? But hey, you got to play.
Yeah, so the Colts are the 8 seed right now. They're 6-8. The Dolphins are 6-8. So the Chargers are 2 games ahead of those 2 teams to close the season. Now, the Colts do have a pretty easy schedule. They play the Titans, Giants, and Jaguars to close the year. So theoretically, like if they win out, they would get to 9-8. And potentially be in range. The Miami Dolphins, also 6-8. They play the 49ers, the Browns, and the Jets. So theoretically, they could also win out. I mean, the 49ers are not the same kind of beast, but I still would think they would win that game. And they play at Cleveland. So that's a cold weather game, which means the Dolphins are not going to win that one. So the Chargers would have to lose their final 3 games, and the Colts would have to win out in order for the Chargers to miss the playoffs. I don't know if I'm going to pick them to win on Thursday, but if they lose to the Patriots and Raiders, then yeah, man, we got problems right here because those 2 teams are terrible. So do I still envision a playoff appearance? Yes. But if they lose to the Broncos on Thursday, and they are the 7 seed playing at Buffalo, it is going to be a very, very quick playoff appearance, and it is not going to be a fun playoff game, in my opinion, because we've seen what this team looks like against a great contending caliber roster, whether that's the Ravens or today or against the Chiefs in moments. The Bills are a buzzsaw. I think the Bills would cook against us, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So if they lose Thursday, that's not going to be a pretty playoff picture, I think, but they will make the playoffs, I think, because they play the Patriots and the Raiders to close out.
I agree. And thankfully, they've only won in Vegas every year, and nothing bad ever happens there.
If they lose to the Raiders this time, though, Max Crosby's out for the season. No Christian Wilkins. I think Aiden O'Connell got hurt again this week. Antonio Pierce is probably the worst coach in the NFL. Like,
I agree. I agree. And yet, I don't know, man.
So yes, the playoff picture, I think is still very likely. According to Next Gen Stats, the loss today only impacted their playoff chances by like 2%. heading into today. It was with a win, it was 96. With a loss, it was 90. So it was not a super impactful playoff loss, but from a seeding standpoint, it definitely matters. So if they could sweep the Broncos on Thursday, that would be huge for their seeding potential, because then you're a 6 seed playing at the Steelers. And I know the Steelers defense is great, but that offense still leaves a lot of left to be desired. So I'd much rather would play the Steelers than the Bills.
Yeah, so I think every AFC team would agree with you there. Not that it's a fun one, but I would agree with you there for sure.
Yeah, so if you're wondering about the tiebreakers, the Chargers right now are 5-4 against the AFC. The Colts are 5-5. So that would be helpful to the Chargers in a potential playoff push. And the Chargers are 2-2 in division. Colts are 1-3. So I believe the Chargers would have the tiebreaker if that comes to fruition. But if the Chargers lose out, that means they would go 0-4 down the stretch. And at that point, I don't know if I would want them to be in the playoffs.
Yeah, no. God, no. No, thank you.
Yeah. But again, we've seen this team beat the teams that they should beat. They should be able to beat the Patriots and the Raiders, who are actively trying to tank and lose games.
Yeah, probably.
Good question, though, from our guy Evan there. Last one here says from NB, no run game, but not a single screen or quick games or running back in the flat pass in sight. Yeah, it was a disaster. The only time they throw to the running back is when Kamani Vidal is a check down. So it's frustrating.
Yeah. I don't know why the lack of screens. I know the receiver screens haven't been perfect. I mean, Quentin Johnston blocks and it's not great and someone gets blasted, but
the tight end screens have generally been pretty good.
Yeah, tight end screens. Granted, there's no Will Dissly. A running back screen. Like, I don't know why you're not putting Kamani Vidal behind, an open running space of Zion and Slater and like Fisk or whoever. Like, I'm pretty sure those guys could make it work on the left side on a screen.
Yeah. I'll have to go back and see if there's any data, but I feel like the Ravens always had a pretty good screen, bag, so to speak. I don't know if this is just, I don't know, weird, but I could be wrong, but I feel like the screen game was always a strength of the Ravens, and now it's the Chargers are only good at screens if it's to Will Dissly.
Of course.
The slowest person on the offense.
Hey, that's Tucker Fisk, all right?
Fair. The slowest active pass catcher.
Yeah.
Oh, man. All right. So that's going to do it for us today. Obviously, we'll have a bit of a different schedule for you guys this week. We'll probably, do our preview show on Wednesday. We'll see when we can get to the film. But short week is going to complicate things for us a bit, as it always does. So we'll keep you guys posted in that regard. But as always, make sure you are liking, commenting, subscribing. All that stuff does help continue to grow the show, and we do appreciate it greatly. That is going to do it for us on the Guilty as Charged podcast. As always, bolt up.